Well, hello and welcome to today's episode of the Power of Your Mind podcast. You're listening to episode number 126. I'm Victoria Gallagher, Law of Attraction hypnotist and #1 best-selling author of the book Practical Law of Attraction: Align Yourself with the Manifesting Conditions and Successfully Attract Your Desires. I'm also the founder of HipTalk.com and HypnoCloud apps, which gives you access to over 500 hypnosis recordings right in the palm of your hand. So be sure to download that app from the App Store. And just as a side note, if you're hearing a little bit of echo, it's because I'm in my brand new studio in my brand new house that has not been treated yet. And this happens to be my very first podcast episode in the new house. And so today I have a very special guest, a friend and a colleague who I've known for years, Michael Stevenson. Michael is a best-selling author, business coach, success coach, and international speaker with an impressive credentials and experience. He has helped nearly 200,000 people around the world learn to use the power of their mind to turn off the autopilot, take hold of the controls, and create the life of their dreams. Michael started Transform Destiny in the year 2000 during doing hypnotherapy, NLP, and now in 2020, he leads a team of amazing NLP trainers who are teaching NLP and hypnotherapy all over the United States. He's written several books on hypnotherapy and NLP and also co-starred in the movie The Evolution of Success with Jack Canfield and Vitale and other leaders in the field. Michael was voted #2 trainer in the world in 2020 by globalguru.org, and he can be found on the website transformdestiny.com. Today, Michael is going to share with us some of his insights on understanding the layers of the mind for long-term change. So welcome to the show, Michael.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm great. It's so great to have you on the show here.
Great to see you virtually.
I know. We've never seen each other virtually. It's always been in person.
I know, it's so backwards. I feel like I'm seeing everybody virtually. I've been attending parties and networking events on Zoom, and it's been a very strange year, huh?
It has been. And for those of you who are watching, listening or watching like in the year 2025, you got to understand we're recording this right now in September 2020. Actually, it's still September 30th. We're recording this. You'll probably not even be able to hear this until sometime in November. Lord knows where we'll be at that point in time. But thank you so much for being here and blessing us with your wonderful information on the power of your mind using NLP and hypnotherapy. So let's dive right into this conversation. Right. I'm excited. So, I know, but for our audience, I would love to get your take and your words. How powerful is the subconscious mind?
Man, this is such a great question because I think most people don't really understand. It's one of the most impactful parts of you as a person. But because it's subconscious, most people are not aware of it. And this was me in my life. I struggled in my life. I went through a lot of challenges in my early years. I was born to a mother who was only 14 years old. My mom never graduated junior high. Add to that the fact she had a vicious personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, which is one of the highest in terms of toxicity. And growing up in abject poverty, by the time I was 19 years old, I was homeless. Had a lot of toxic relationships in my early 20s. And I really walked around in my life really feeling like I wasn't in control of it, which I think most people feel that way in their life. I think that most people feel like life is something that happens to them, that they don't happen to their life. And it wasn't until I discovered hypnotherapy and neurolinguistic programming, in 1998, I was a 3-pack-a-day cigarette smoker.
Oh, wow.
60 cigarettes a day.
Oh, my goodness.
I smoked Marlboro Lights, which are kind of like the, the baby cigarettes, the wiener cigarettes, as they say, like, super light, like people who don't really smoke Marlboro Lights, right? I went from that as a teenager to Marlboro Reds, and then to Camels, and then to Lucky Strikes, which are like the strongest. And then for a long time, I actually rolled my own cigarettes
Oh my
because the ones I was
goodness.
smoking, I was hopelessly addicted to cigarettes. And then I had so many lung problems. I ended up in the hospital several times. I wasn't able to breathe. They had to put me on antibiotics for real chronic, like bronchitis issues. I would get into these coughing fits where I'd start coughing and then stuff would keep coming out of my lungs and I would cough so hard I couldn't breathe. My face start to turn purple. And so I wanted to quit, but for 5 years, nothing that I did would work. I tried cold turkey probably hundreds of times. Usually the longest I could make it was 25 minutes. If I was really determined to make it a day, but then the next day I'd be back to smoking. I tried the patch. I would rip off the patch and smoke a cigarette and put the patch back on because the patch wasn't strong enough for me. Like I tried everything. Pharmaceuticals. I tried Zyban, which made my whole body start to convulse. And I really thought I was just hopelessly addicted to cigarettes and that I was going to die young. I kind of had resolved myself to that point until in 1998, I went to a stage show in Orange County, California. And the guy there was selling, a guy named Mark Usick, he's a great friend of mine today. He was selling cassette tapes. And I didn't believe in hypnosis. I wasn't interested in hypnosis, but when he would hypnotize the people on stage, he'd turn his microphone off so the people in the audience wouldn't be hypnotized. And I just had this insatiable curiosity to know what the heck is this guy saying to make these people fall all over themselves and, dance. They're all thinking they're dancers and singing and, all this stuff that they would do. And it was just, it was this just insatiable curiosity. So I went to the back table after a show and I bought 3 tapes for $20 on sale. And one of them was Quit Smoking. And I took it home and I listened to it. September 5th, 1998. I popped in the tape. He said, listen, hypnosis isn't voodoo. It isn't spooky. It isn't mind control. It's just a coupling of relaxation plus focused attention. So we could speak to your subconscious mind where all habits are formed. And smoking is just a habit. So he said, listen to this when you fall asleep tonight. When you wake up in the morning, you'll be a non-smoker. And I was a very skeptical, logical guy back then. I didn't believe it. But I was also at this point where I was like, why not? I've tried everything else. I might as well just try this. What's it going to, what's it going to hurt? So I popped in the tape and I don't think I heard more than 5 or 6 words. And I woke up the next morning and never touched another cigarette.
That is amazing.
Yeah. 60 cigarettes a day just disappeared out of my life like that. No addiction, no cravings, no withdrawals. Never have desired another cigarette. It's been my 22-year anniversary just a couple of weeks ago. And that was my kind of introduction to the power of the subconscious mind, At first I thought the guy just tricked me.
I have to tell you, we have already some parallels that I wasn't even aware of in all the time that we've known each other, because you quit smoking only a few months after I quit smoking. I quit smoking after attending a seminar. It was a personal development seminar, but they taught us, they never said hypnosis, but they taught us, essentially it was visualization, hypnosis. And they taught us this technique in there. I went to the hospital with a lung collapse, April 1st of 98. I was getting ready to quit. I was going to use the technique, because there's a difference between like learning the technique and then using the technique. So I was going to use it in a couple of weeks, but the universe had other plans, gave me a lung collapse and said, you're going to start using it now. And I quit April 1st, 1998.
Wow. That's awesome. That's so cool.
It's cool that we kind of both, I wasn't a 3-pack a day. I was 1 pack, but it was Marlboro Lights.
Yeah.
I never graduated to the full, smoke
Good for you.
Were.
Good for you.
Well,
hey, the great news is all the research shows that after 10 years, our lungs are back to pink with no risk of cancer. So we're both in the clear. Yay.
Yes. Well, and since then I've run marathons, so I don't think I could do that if my lungs were messed up. But so what would you say is like the biggest misunderstanding that people have when it comes to the subconscious mind?
I think the biggest misunderstanding comes down to Freud. We had this guy 110 years ago who everybody thinks is like the guy when it comes to psychology. Freud was a psychologist, he was not the psychologist. Everybody thinks he started. I mean, William James was around back then, and I think William James had a much healthier understanding of the subconscious mind. But Freud taught us all that the subconscious mind is this deep, dark, ugly place where we repress our desire to kill smaller furry animals and sleep with our parents, right? And maybe that was Freud's subconscious mind. But our understanding now of the subconscious mind comes from Milton H. Erickson, who I think was the greatest hypnotherapist who ever walked the face of the earth. And Milton in the 1950s came along and really said, your subconscious mind isn't deep, it's not dark, it's ugly, it's not ugly, it's you. Your subconscious mind is just you. But it's a part of you that you're not aware of, and a part of us that unfortunately most of us suppress and push away. Not that it's suppressed unconsciously, but we are sort of taught in the Western world to ignore our subconscious mind. In other cultures around the world, if you go to India, they respect the unconscious mind over there, right? They meditate. There's a lot of respect for the subconscious mind. But here in the Western world, we're almost taught that the subconscious mind is fake. That if you get a hunch, you should ignore it because that's just a guess. That it's not actually intuition. That your dreams, dream interpretation, that's just woo-woo stuff. Hypnosis, that's new age. Let's forget the fact that hypnosis has been around for over 5,000 years of documented history. Maybe not under that name, but they call hypnosis new age as if it was invented in the 70s. Right. And really, when it comes down to it, your subconscious mind is, for lack of a better metaphor, your subconscious mind is the most powerful supercomputer in the universe.
Yes.
Right? The subconscious mind, by the way, goes beyond the brain. And I think this is a big misconception about the subconscious mind. A lot of people think it's your brain. And your brain's a thinking organ. But I think all the research proves that your subconscious mind is actually holographically throughout your body. Your whole body thinks. Your whole body has an intuition. But when people come across a situation that they don't like and they go, oh, I got a bad gut feeling about this, that's actually your gut talking to you. It's another part of your mind that you're not conscious of, right? When people say, I'm following my heart, a lot of people think that's a metaphor, but your heart actually has neurons in it. Your heart is a thinking organ and communicates to you through non-conscious signals, right? And through body signals. And so our subconscious mind is actually our whole body. And every nerve, every single cell in the whole body has the ability to communicate with each other. And so when we go beyond what we think the conscious mind is, which is just a tiny shred of the brain, to this massive supercomputer that is your whole body, it's actually amazing. They've estimated, because every cell can communicate with every other cell through neurotransmitter, they've actually estimated that we have a total of 10 to the 10th to the 11th power of connections in our body. Wow. Which is more than any. So you could hook up every supercomputer in the world. You could hook up every computer in the world, and you wouldn't have 10 to the 10th to the 11th connections, right? It's more than the number of the grains of sand on the face of the earth. It's more than the number of stars in the universe. Matter of fact, scientists estimate that it's more than the number of atoms in the universe because it's exponential. And that's the power of the subconscious mind. But the problem is, you could have the greatest supercomputer in the world, but if you close the door and lock the door and you didn't have any access to it, what good would it do you? That's what we do in the Western world here. We close the door and lock it.
Right.
So, my job, the first thing for me, my part of my journey was unlocking that door myself. When I was homeless at 19 years old, living on the streets, I was friendless, I was homeless, I had no money, I had no possessions. I was at the lowest point of my life. And one of the biggest issues that I had at that point in my life was I felt like I was valueless. I didn't feel like, as a human being, I brought value to the world, to the earth, to anybody around me. I didn't think anybody wanted to be around me. And when I discovered my own power, through first quitting smoking and then studying hypnotherapy, then I got certified as a hypnotherapist in 2000. And I did that for a few years. And then I learned NLP and I got certified in that and eventually became a master trainer. That whole journey for me was a journey of, number one, discovering myself, that I actually have value to bring in the world. But then my joy now is helping other people discover that they have value, because most people think they're just normal.
Right. And
nothing could be further from the truth. We were put here to be magnificent.
I love that.
Nothing else makes sense.
I love the way you explain how the subconscious mind is in every cell of the body, every organ of the body. It makes so much sense because, why give all the credit to just what's contained, in the brain? It really does make a lot of sense. And, and just how powerful it is. That, all the grains of the sand and all the atoms, I mean, that
It's
that
mind blowing.
has more connections than that. It's
Yeah.
mind boggling, literally.
Yeah. But most
Mind
people are only
boggling.
tapping into a tiny, tiny percent of it we call the conscious mind. That's all that
It's
they live
so,
their life with.
yeah, it's so true. It is absolutely
Yeah.
true. And so, so we talk about, hypnosis a lot here. But how is that related, or is that related to like NLP, or,
Yeah.
how would you describe NLP?
This is for me. When I got certified as a hypnotherapist, I had heard of NLP because it's mentioned in books and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I kept asking people, like, what is this NLP thing? They go, oh, it's going to change your life. And then I went and read the book NLP Volume 1, which is
Okay.
like, it's a great alternative to Ambien. It'll put you to sleep in a second, and it's just brain twisting. Not a good book to read. And I read that book and I'm like, I don't understand how this is going to help me. Everybody keeps saying it's a way of life. Everybody keeps saying it's mind blowing. But then I'm reading all these books and they're about like written like dissertations and I can't understand them, or they're written for salespeople about closing sales. And, I mean, there's even other weird things that people do with NLP. And I kept just going, what is this NLP? I don't understand it. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't communicate what it is effectively. And
Mm-hmm.
I think we would definitely reach more people if more people communicated what it is. So NLP stands for neuro-linguistic programming, right? That's a big fancy $5 word. Let's simplify it down to 50-cent concept, right? Which is NLP is the lost user manual for the mind.
Okay. I like
There's a
that. The
lot of different
lost,
definitions out
yeah,
there,
the
but
lost
that's the one I
user
like the
manual
best.
for the mind. Yes.
Right. So if the subconscious mind is like one of those supercomputers, and if it's locked in a room, like most people in the Western world do, we ignore it, we pretend it doesn't exist, we're even told that it's, woo-woo. NLP is number one, it's the key to open that door, right?
Yes.
And then once you open the door and you have access to the supercomputer, you need an instruction book. I mean, imagine if somebody shipped you the most powerful supercomputer in the world. You opened it up, you plugged it all in, and then you're like, where's the instruction manual, right? What would you be able to do with a supercomputer if you didn't know how it operated, what its purpose was, how to program it? It wouldn't be any good at all. And that's what NLP gives us. I like to think of it as, I don't know if you remember this, but in the 1980s, there was a show that was called The Greatest American Hero.
Yes.
Yeah. So the whole premise of the show is this guy's driving through the desert, his car conks out, and an alien ship lands. And the aliens come out and they give him a gift. They give him this box. And he takes the box home and he opens it up and it's a superhero suit. But unlike Superman, who in the 80s was like perfect, every hair in the right place, you couldn't do anything wrong. This guy was a goof. And he put the suit on and he couldn't figure out how to operate it. And so he had super strength, but he'd walk up and rip doors off their hinges, and he'd try to fly, but he was crashing through billboards and, he'd try to look through the wall and he'd burn a hole in it with his supervision, and like, it was total mayhem. He had this amazing power, this amazing gift, no clue how to use it. It turns out like season 3, it turns out he dropped the instruction manual in the desert. So they went back to try to find the instruction manual, but that's what NLP really is. It gives us the tools to work with the subconscious mind. And I don't think the definition needs to be any more complex than that.
I love that definition. I've never heard it put. I mean, I've been certified in NLP myself since 1999, and
Mm-hmm.
and never once have I ever heard it explained exactly like that. And the relationship between the subconscious mind being that big fancy
Mm-hmm.
supercomputer behind the closed door that you don't know how
Yeah.
to open, you don't know how to operate, and
Right.
the NLP is the set of tools and techniques and strategies that helps you to learn how to work with
Right.
that superpower. That I love it. I love it.
Well,
So
here's the interesting thing is that supercomputer being locked behind the door, many people would think, okay, well, what's the big deal that it's locked behind the door, right? Okay, so maybe I don't achieve all that I want to achieve in my life. But there are other implications in that.
mhm,
Having that door locked, in my experience, if you look at authors like John Sarna, who wrote
mhm,
the book Healing Back Pain, back surgeon, he actually determined that chronic back pain for most people is not physical, it isn't mechanical. It's the result of negative emotions that are being harbored at the unconscious level that are not
mhm,
released.
mhm.
So we can go beyond just saying, okay, you're not going to get all of the you can get in your life if you don't open that door. But if you keep that door closed, there are actually health implications and mental implications.
Right.
It damages you to keep that door closed. So
Right. So
there's
it's not just
both
about,
motivations.
yeah. So it's not just about, oh, I don't really care if I don't
Achievement.
achieve my full potential here.
Right.
You could actually go in reverse. It could actually cause serious problems in your
Absolutely.
life if you don't learn how to use this.
Yeah. That's why I like working with children, right? Teach them to open that door from the time that they're really young, and then they don't have to fight it.
Absolutely. Okay. So, what about the people that, can anybody, use NLP?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
because
I'm
sure there's some people that say, I'm not smart enough. I don't have goals. I don't know what I want. What about those people?
Hey, I was the dumb kid in school, right?
Okay.
I was the kid who was failing out of high school, not because I was dumb. I thought I was dumb at the time because I had all the evidence. I had the F's on my report cards. I struggled. I couldn't remember things in tests. I learned later that I'm an amazing learner once I actually tapped into the subconscious mind and learned that, learning is a process, and the way that they teach it in schools, that process doesn't fit everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But I was that kid that thought I was dumb in school, and I learned it. Here's the thing, really, historically, the number one thing that has prevented people from learning NLP has nothing to do with intelligence or confidence or anything else like that. It's money.
Mm-hmm.
Right? NLP, ever since the beginning, and this goes right back to the founders of NLP, right? It's the culture that was created in the field. NLP traditionally has been very expensive to go get trained in.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, the only way you could learn it for many, many years was to go to a quote certification training, which were usually several thousands of dollars and at least a week out of your life, if not 21 days or 6 months, depending which trainer you went to.
Mm-hmm.
So part of my purpose in becoming a trainer of NLP was not just to go out and certify people, which I think we need that still. We need coaches out there who are helping people and certified, but also to just bring it to the average everyday person.
Yeah.
It shouldn't have to cost you $2,500 to learn how to run your own life, especially if some of those things you haven't been able to run are things like finances and success. Right?
Yeah. It's
which
like
NLP can help you unlock.
It's like a catch-22. It's like, I need the NLP in order to learn how to make the money to get to the certification course so I can better my life.
Exactly.
So you help, you help people to, bring it into more of a reality practical reality that people are actually living in right now, such that they are on a search for that. So anyone can use it.
Exactly.
Yep. What are some of the typical things that NLP could be used for?
Well, really, the potential is as unlimited as your unconscious mind.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I truly do believe, there's this phrase that we all have that says, well, we're all unlimited. It's almost thrown around flippantly these days, but yeah, while we are all unlimited, not everybody is tapping into their unlimited potential,
right?
Especially when most of it is locked behind a closed door. So, in NLP, really the core of NLP and where NLP came from is the study of excellence.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't know this. A lot of people think that NLP is therapy, or they think that NLP is, a lot of people call it hypnosis 2.0, like hypnosis with your eyes open. Some people think it's for sales. Some people think it's for relationships, right? NLP is almost, in a lot of ways, if you look at it, it's very scattered. But the reason why it's scattered is because really at its core, it's a study of excellence. We can study excellence in any field whatsoever. Matter of fact, in the 1980s, they used NLP to model Greg Louganis, the world's greatest diver at the time. He was the greatest diver in the world. And even other people on the US team who were also the greatest divers in the US were like, he was head and shoulders above the rest of them. And the NLP modelers went in and found out what he was doing different, which is not always a physical thing, right? A lot of times when we want to model somebody who's successful, we just try to do what they do, but there's so much more to it than that.
So you're using an NLP term here, modeling. Can you go into a little bit about what that is?
Sure. We've all tried to model people before, right? If you've ever not known how to juggle and somebody tries to juggle in front of you and you're like, I want to try that. And then you try to do what they do, right? Every 12-year-old kid has tried to model Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant or whatever. But most people, when they model, they just try to mimic the other person.
Okay.
But it turns out, and this is one of those things, is it okay if I share some slides?
Sure, absolutely.
I think I may have to request some access from you.
Yeah, let me give that
I
to
could do it without
you.
slides if we need to, but
Um,
so one of the biggest misconceptions actually is that we have a conscious mind and a subconscious mind, right? I was taught that in my hypnotherapy training. You were taught that in your hypnotherapy training, I'm sure. And we've all heard the terms, that we have a conscious mind and a subconscious mind, but it actually goes a lot deeper than that. And our mind is actually broken up into many layers.
mhm. Yeah,
Am I able to share?
you
Oh,
should be.
sweet.
I made you a co-host here.
Beautiful. All right. So this will make it easier for those of you who want to take notes. So, like I said, there's a misconception, a misnomer that we have a conscious mind and a subconscious mind. It's a nice metaphor, and it's a practical understanding of the mind. But in reality, we don't. We have a mind. You have one mind, and that mind, you're conscious of a very tiny part of it, and there's a lot of it you're not conscious of, right? But if we were to actually study the mind at a deeper level, it turns out there's many different layers of your mind. And so I'm going to lay this out in terms of creating long-lasting change in your life. Because see, most people can get short-term change. Every time I would try to quit smoking, right, I would be able to get short-term change. I could quit for a day or for 20 minutes. But how do we make a change that lasts a lifetime, right? Think about how most people lose weight. Most people, they wake up one morning, they decide they don't like the way they look anymore. They go on a diet and they lose weight. And then what happens? They gain it back again. They lose weight and they gain it back again. They lose weight, they gain it back. And then eventually people give up. You can look at people when it comes to finances. How do most people do when it comes to financial success in their life? They make some money, then they don't make money. Then they make money and they don't make money. And we get this, sort of what we like to call the yo-yo effect that happens in people's lives. For most people, when they've tried to create change consciously, they end up getting a yo-yo. So I want to talk about how to create change that lasts a lifetime. If you want to change something, you want to achieve anything in your life, this is one of the most basic principles from NLP, but it's a foundation that will help you get any kind of change you want. So if we look at how the mind works, I'm going to go from the bottom to the top if you're taking notes. And the bottom is the most conscious part of the mind. The top is the most subconscious. All right. Are we there? We're good?
I have, hang on. I just want to make sure that for some reason, it's not acting the way it normally does when, yeah. So give me, and I might just pause. I might just pause this for a second. Because I seem to have lost control on my side somehow. Let's see here.
Let's see. Oh, you made me
co-host
instead of just telling me I could share my slides. That's probably what it was. Can I transfer control back to you?
Yeah, I seem to have lost.
Hopefully it's still recording. Yep, it is still recording. So that's
good. Yeah. Okay. I have now I'm back. What I don't know. You did.
I just stopped sharing my slides.
Okay. And what I'm gonna do here, this will still be messed up for the video, I think, but for my audio, this is where we need to do a little editing.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right. And I'll bring this back up. Okay. Are we good now?
Oh, much better. Much better. Okay.
Perfect. All right. I'll pick up where I left off.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So for those of you who are taking notes, we're going to work from the bottom layer of the mind, which is the most conscious. And as we go up higher through the list, we're going to go more deeper into the subconscious mind. Okay. So you'll notice that. So the first layer of the mind is what I like to call environment, or what some people call results. Think about it. When most people set a goal, right? And Victoria, I'm sure that you've worked with a lot of clients over the years, right? You go, hey, what is it that you want?
Yes.
What do most people say? Most people say, I want more money. Most people say, I want a different relationship. They say, I want a better house. They say, I want a different car. And what are people doing when they're setting their goals? Almost every goal a person sets, they're pointing outside of their body at something else in the environment that they want.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that's bad. It's not like it's evil, but it's certainly the least effective way, right? If people want change in their life, the least effective thing that you can do is try to change something outside of you.
Right.
Milton Erickson had a great quote from the 1950s. And the first time I heard it, I was blown away by this, but it gets more profound over the years, the more clients I work with. He said, at one point I realized that all of my clients' problems were simply metaphors.
Oh, interesting.
So what was he saying? He was saying, you know what, if you're unhappy with how much money you have, most people will point outside of them and say, that's the problem. That's what I need to change. He would say the bank account that only has 32 cents in it is not the problem. It's the symptom of the thinking that created the problem.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, trying to solve the problem out there, the way one thing I've heard is, trying to change the problem out there is like trying to change the look at the mirror and change the reflection on the mirror.
Exactly. Exactly. And this is what I found in my life. I used to, when I was on the street, I could point my finger at every person in every situation that put me on the street. There came a point, I was only 19 years old and I was going through a lot in my life, but there came a point near the end where I started to realize, hey, maybe I have a hand in this. Maybe it isn't everybody else's fault that I'm here on the street. Maybe it's something that I'm doing. And there came a point where I started to switch to what we call being at cause as opposed to living in effect. Right. And so this is the thing is like most people, I'm going to use weight loss as an example through all these layers because it's something a lot of people can relate to. If most people want to lose weight, let's say they're up at 3:00 in the morning, they're watching TV and the infomercial comes on, right? And there's this contraption that they're trying to sell at 3:00 in the morning, right? It's the Bow Junction 2042 or whatever, right? And people see this thing on screen and they see the people with all the oiled up muscles and they go, and they do the impulse, right? They deliver it to the living room and people put a contraption in their living room, in their environment. And they say, now that this is here, I have to exercise. Is that true?
No.
Almost anybody who's ever bought one would tell you it's not true, right? Because you put the thing in the living room and, people start hanging their clothes on it, the cat sleeps on it, but it doesn't get used for exercise, right? No. If you wanted to eat healthier, people go through and they start raiding their cupboards and they throw out all the Oreos and the Twinkies and the Ho-Hos to get rid of the secret stash of candy and next to the nightstand next to the bed. Does that make them lose weight? No. It's the least effective way. Okay.
Right.
Now, here's the interesting thing. Environment is your unconscious connection. Your conscious mind is actually the thing that's between your subconscious mind and your environment. Mm-hmm. So the environment is the thing we're most conscious of.
Right.
But as we go deeper into the mind, what you'll find is each layer becomes more and more powerful. So what's the next layer that we go? The next layer is behavior. If I wanted to lose weight, let's say it's January 1st, because this is when everybody wants to lose weight, right? It's the New Year's resolution. People go, I'm going to lose weight this year. They go down to the gym on January 1st. They buy that gym membership and they say, I'm going to exercise 7 days a week. Exercise is a behavior, right? Yeah. So they're trying to change their behavior in order to get a result. Now, if they did exercise 7 days a week for say 3 or 4 months, would that have a result in the environment of their body? Sure. Yes. Absolutely. If you could get yourself to exercise 7 days a week for 4 months, it would definitely be an environmental change. And so every layer that you go down, there's a trickle down effect. If I change the environment, it only changes the environment. If I change my behavior, it actually changes the behavior and the environment, but I only have to focus on one layer, right? So by changing my behavior, if I can get myself to exercise, that will trickle down and give me a different result in my life. But here's the problem. How many people buy that gym membership and they don't even make it one in a row?
Yeah, right? Not too many.
Or, yeah. Or, there's this old adage that says 21 days to make a habit, right? Just get yourself to exercise for 20. But most people don't even have the fortitude to do that, right? So what happens is behavior, you can change your behaviors and that can give you a different result. But for most people, it's not a very effective way, right? Take coaching, for example. One of the reasons why a lot of coaches don't have successful clients is because they just tell their clients what to do. Mm-hmm. And very often those clients will hear what to do, but for whatever reason, they don't have the internal structure to be able to get the same result as the coach. Matter of fact, most coaches and most hypnotherapists that I know, they only focus on these bottom 2 layers. Think about it. When you go to a hypnotherapist, what do most hypnotherapists do? And frankly, even MP3s, because, when you have MP3s, I have MP3s, but they're not tailored to the client. Right?
Right.
It's very often just a behavioral thing. Chew your food 32 times, check your stomach between each bite, eat healthier. And we're just trying to change behavior. And that can work for a lot of people. That can work for a lot of people, but it's not the most powerful way to get change. So what's the next layer up? Next layer up is potential. Now, I said earlier, we all have unlimited potential. Right. Not all tapped into our unlimited potential. Right. So this is how much potential we're actually tapping into. And we can have positive potentials. We can also have limited potentials, right? So I'll give you an example. Is one way to unlock potentials is to learn something new. Mm-hmm. Go read a good book. Go take a course. Go experience something different than you've experienced before. And that will very often, like I know a lot of people say jumping out of an airplane, skydiving is one of the most amazing things in their life because now they realize they're unlimited. Right. Or people who go to one of those seminars and they walk on fire. and walking on fire is like, I'm unlimited, right? So there are things that we can do that open up new potential for us. So I'll give you a personal example. For years, I used to be super, super skinny. In high school, I got made fun of. I was like 90 pounds. And so over the years, I tried to hire people to help me in the gym. These fitness instructors or trainers, whatever you want to call them. Never got any results from them. I would work with them for sometimes 3 months. And these are the people who would get in your face and spit and give me 10 more, And it was like, no matter what I did, I could never pack muscle on. And I was very self-conscious of it as a young man. Then I went and had the opposite problem. My wife and I traveled the world for 5 years and I put on 30 pounds, just eating food in all the different countries. But years ago, this was before I met Kayla, I was single, I was dating, and I wanted to lose a little bit of weight and look better. So I hired my friend Ruben to come in. He's a fitness instructor on the side. And I told him, I said, Ruben, for years I've tried to hire fitness instructors and it never gets a result. And he goes, what happens? And I go, well, I always try to work out, but I always feel like I'm not working out the right muscle. So like if I try to do a curl, my forearm gets tired, like really quick. And I just never bulk up. He goes, I gotcha. Comes into the gym. He goes, lift some weights for me. And I picked up some 25 pounds weights and I'm like, and I'm struggling and my arms are aching here instead of here where they're supposed to. Mm-hmm. He goes, I gotcha. He goes, when you work out, there's only 20 degrees of motion that works out the muscle, right? What do most people do? They take that weight, they hang it all the way down by their side and they lift it all the way up like this. He goes, look, this is the only part right here that works out the bicep, this 20 degrees of motion right here. So he said, stop doing the thing where you hang it all the way down. And he actually made me go grab the girl weights, like a 10-pound girl weight. And I did 10 reps of that and I could actually feel it. And then when I was bench pressing, he said, don't bring it all the way down to your chest because your chest muscles can't lift it. You're trying to lift it with your triceps. He goes, 20 degrees of motion. Just this right here is the only thing. And I was like blown away. Now he only showed me 2 exercises, right? Mm-hmm. Curls and the bench press.
Right.
But when he taught me that something new, it unlocked my potential.
Yeah.
Did he have to teach me every exercise in the gym after that?
No, because it translates all I had to learn. Yes.
Exactly. So now that I have a new potential, that new potential trickles down on my behavior. Mm-hmm. It changed the entire way that I worked out and that trickled down and I lost a ton of weight and I looked really good. And then Kayla found me. That was a good thing. But here's an interesting thing about the trickle down effect. The unlocked potential.
You had multiple environment changes.
That's right.
You had your body and you had your relationship.
That's right. And so we can have a positive change that trickles down, but we can also have a negative change. If I had a limited potential, like I had a best friend years ago who thought that he was a slow reader. Mm-hmm. Because he didn't think he could read fast, he didn't read. Mm-hmm. So the limited potential actually trickled down and limited his behavior, which limited his results. At one point, he told me he had not read a book since the last time he had to, which was high school.
Wow.
And this was a guy in his 30s, right? And then we did some NLP techniques and we released the limiting belief that he was a slow reader and he started reading avidly. He actually became a business owner, quit his job. It had a massive impact in his life. So the trickle down can be positive or negative, which is really important. All right, now potential is great. Where does our potential come from? Beliefs.
Our beliefs.
Right. So our beliefs are the framework of our reality. Mm-hmm. This is one of the things we study in NLP is that there is no such thing as a reality. Each person has their own subjective reality. Mm-hmm. We build that reality in our mind. And in NLP, we call that our model of the world. We don't actually respond to the world out there. We respond to our own internal model of the world, which we think is reality, but is actually our own construction based on input that we get, right? I could go down a rabbit hole of that for hours of how fascinating that is, that we actually all create our own reality. But our beliefs are
all the filters that have been created through all the experiences that we've had.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Totally amazing. So our beliefs, when we unlock a belief, when we adopt an empowering belief, that gives us new potential, gives us new behaviors, and that changes our environment. Now notice, the only thing that has to change is the belief. Mm-hmm. If I change the belief, I don't have to go back and change the environment. I don't have to change my behavior. I don't have to get new potential because the belief trickles down and changes everything below it.
Wow.
And this is the power of the subconscious mind, is the exponential effect of going deeper, right? It's an exponential effect.
Because all the beliefs are in your subconscious.
Exactly. Now, we've all had the experience of having limiting belief as well. My friend who believed that he was a slow reader limited his potential, limited his behavior, limited his environment. So the deeper we go, the more impactful the change is. Now, and we all know how powerful a belief is. If you've ever let go of a limiting belief, you know how that can be life-changing. But it's not as deep as you can go, right? You can go deeper than that. So what is deeper than beliefs? It's values. Now, our values, a really quick definition of values is values are deep subconscious drivers that dictate how you invest your time and attention, right? If my friend Ruben, who I hired to go to train me at the gym, he gets up at 4 o'clock every single morning, 7 days a week. It doesn't care if it's Sunday. Like a lot of people are like, Sunday, I'm sleeping in, right? Ruben is up at 4 o'clock in the morning and he's at the gym every single day. In the last 10 years, Ruben has only ever missed like 2 days at the gym, both times because he had the flu. 2 days because he had the flu. He kicked himself. He was so mad he couldn't go to the gym. He just couldn't get out of bed. Now think about that versus the person who wakes up on January 1st and says, I'm going to work out 7 days a week. That person who's only trying to change their behavior, and then they just can't seem to get themselves to go. Ruben can't get himself to not go.
Right.
And
because he has that at the value. You're saying he has that at the level of value.
The values level. Yeah. He's got such deep ingrained values. His body is a temple. He believes his body is on loan to him from God and he wants to give it back in better condition than he got it. Like he's got these deeply ingrained values about what it means to be healthy. And he values health, he values fitness, he values his body. Whereas a lot of other people, they just want to not be fat.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Which also gets into motivation direction, which we talk about a lot with values. Are you being motivated toward what you want, or are you pushing away from what you don't want? There's a big difference in there. Right. And so, you know, this is the thing, is like a lot of people will say, I want to be wealthy.
Yeah.
And they'll wish that for their whole life. They might even take action. But the problem is they're pointing at something outside of them.
Yeah.
They're pointing at something outside. I want to be wealthy is an outside thing. But what they're probably lacking internally is the correct value structure. If you have the right value structure, wealth becomes a habit. You don't try to have to earn wealth. You don't have to struggle for wealth. Wealth and abundance become a habit if you have the right values in place.
And what would you say would be the right value to have to, you know, to master money, to master abundance?
It's different. I mean, that's subjective. It's different per person, but I will tell you this. It's probably not the values that your parents imprinted on you. Because most people don't have positive values around money, especially those of us who grew up with parents or grandparents who were from the Depression era. Right. And think about this, like there are bleed overs in areas of life. Like you wouldn't realize that the Depression was a lack of money, but did it create unhealthy eating habits for people? For generations?
Yeah. Yes.
Absolutely. I'll tell you, one of the most direct unhealthy eating habits that comes right from the Depression, which was a money issue, but now we're bleeding over into the health and fitness issue, area of life. You eat every bite of food on your plate.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
That value, by the way, that's a value, right? That value came from the Depression, when there was so little food that if you were a child and you tried to walk away from the table, that was a huge, egregious breach of values. Food and money were so scarce. You honored your food.
Yeah.
You ate every single bite because you didn't know how much you were going to have the next day. Now, those little kids that grew up with that value system, they grew up to have kids in the 50s and 60s where scarcity was no longer an issue. And they told those kids, you eat every bite of food on your plate.
Right.
Then we get into the
They didn't know why they were saying it.
Didn't know why they were saying it. But when they were a kid, that's what was important. Right. And then those kids grow up and they become parents in the 80s and they tell their kids, you eat every bite of food on your plate. Now let's forget the fact that we now have 2,500 calories on every plate because you go to places like Queen Jumper and, you know, there's so much food. There's enough food for 4 meals on every plate at a restaurant today. And I still hear parents tell their kids, you eat every bite before you get up from that table. Or even worse, you want to hear what's worse than that? You eat every bite or you won't get dessert.
Yeah.
So now we're telling our kids, you need to put more calories in your body than is even healthy, and then we're going to give you dessert, which is also unhealthy.
Right.
All this stems directly back to the Depression. It was a value that was installed in those children. And here's the thing, a lot of our values come in between 0 and 7 years old. We don't even understand why we have them. It was something that was important to our parents that was impressed upon us. And the thing about the subconscious mind is from 0 until 7 years old, you're basically a walking subconscious mind. You don't have that conscious critical factor to protect you from external suggestions. So when your parents tell you things like, you eat every bite of food on your plate, you go, that's important. You don't have the ability to rationalize it or reject it. And then that stays with you for the rest of your life unless you challenge it and change it using tools like NLP.
Right.
One of the big ones I talk about today, we have an epidemic going on right now that's called social anxiety disorder. Something like 45% of people in America report that they have social anxiety disorder. Many people are on medication for it. Where does that come from? It comes from the fact that since the 1950s, we've had this thing in America called stranger danger. Mm. We take our kids who are 2, 3, and 4 years old, and we tell them things like, strangers want to kidnap you and steal you from our family. So what happens at a young age, 2, 3, 4 years old, when you hear that, it creates an internal value that strangers are scary.
Right.
Then they grow up never having challenged that value and that belief system, and they go out into the real world, and now strangers are so scary they have to take pills.
Right. And they can't even, look at people in the eyes or smile, right, or just introduce themselves to somebody.
And all that gets layered in at a young age. Now, that doesn't mean you can't change it. You just have to learn how to unlock the door and program the supercomputer.
Right.
Then you can change it. But most people, unfortunately, won't change it in their life because they don't even know there's a supercomputer. They don't even know there's a door, right? That's why I'm passionate about bringing NLP to the masses, not just certifying people to become high dollar coaches, right? Now, values, as powerful as values are, by the way, you change one value can change an entire belief system. Right? We have belief systems around things like money and relationships. Those belief systems, those massive interconnected beliefs, they come from our values. The values trickle down and create those belief systems. I almost like to think of it like grapes on a grapevine, right? The values are the vine, and the grapes are all the beliefs that are attached to that value.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, I like that.
So here's the thing. A lot of times, even, we talked earlier, most hypnotherapists and coaches only focus on the bottom 2 layers. The good ones focus on beliefs, right? But how hard is it to change every limiting belief that you have in your life, especially if you don't know how to identify them?
That's true.
It's true. So the really, really good ones, and this is where a lot of times NLP programming or NLP knowledge comes in, because hypnotherapy doesn't tend to get past beliefs. But when you start learning NLP, you get deeper into the subconscious mind. A lot of times in NLP, we'll just go right at the belief that all these other belief systems just fall away. It's like having it's like that master lock, or what I like to call the Bugs Bunny bolt. In the Bugs Bunny cartoon, they always had that one bolt they could undo and the whole thing would fall apart. Yeah. That's values. Now, as powerful as values are, they're not the deepest level. The deepest function of the subconscious mind, and the most powerful function of the subconscious mind, is identity.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Joseph Campbell had a great quote. He said, "The words 'I am' are the most powerful words in the universe. For what you put after them shapes your destiny."
Oh.
It's so powerful.
Yes.
But here's the thing. And again, if we change one identity, I'll tell you the most impactful change that I've ever had in my life, that changed everything about my life. I was 20 years old. I was a security guard, working a graveyard shift, going nowhere in my life, making very little money, no responsibility, nothing. And a girl that I'd been dating for a few weeks called me on the phone, and she said, "Are you sitting down?" And I said, "No." She said, "You probably want to sit down." So I sat down. I said, "What's going on?" She said 2 words that forever changed my life. "I'm pregnant." 20 years old, fresh off the street, trying to piece my life back together, working a minimum wage job, and a girl that I barely knew said, "I'm pregnant." And the shift in identity that happened in the moments after I heard those words changed my entire life.
Wow.
And I tell my son this all the time. If it weren't for him, I could probably still be a miserable security guard making minimum wage today. Because when I shifted my identity from who I was to I'm going to be a dad, and eventually I am dad, that identity shift created a whole new set of values for me. I didn't value anything in my life up until that point but survival and hanging out with my friends. And then it started, when I realized I'm responsible for another human being, all of my values shifted. Everything that was important to me in my life shifted in a moment. All of my beliefs about what I thought were possible, everything trickled down. It changed my entire life. And that all started from the identity level, right? Now I get a lot of people, they go, "I want to be rich. I want more money in my bank account." They're pointing outside of them like this, but I tell people all the time, I go, what kind of a person attracts money to them? Wealthy people. So until you choose to become wealthy, you have to become wealthy first if you want your bank account to be full. This is a huge law of attraction thing, right? I'm sure you teach similar things to this.
You have to become the wealthy person. Not what you want, but you attract who you are.
Who you are, exactly. And so, I teach a book writing course, and one of the very first things I talk about in day 1, I go through these layers, and I say, here's the problem. Most people want to write a book, but they say, "I can't call myself an author Because I haven't written a book yet. That's a pickle.
Only
Because who
authors
writes
write
books?
books.
Authors write books. You have to become an author first, and then the book will come out of you. You have to become wealthy first, and then your bank account will fill. This is a big one for a lot of people. You have to become lovable first.
Mm-hmm.
In order for you to attract your soulmate. Most people want to attract somebody in their life to prove that they're lovable. Doesn't work. You have to become lovable first.
It's so
Fall
true.
in love
Well,
with yourself.
it's the be do have theory. So many people
It's
say
exactly what it is.
yes. So many people say, well, as soon as I get
Have the money.
this, then I'm going to do
As I
this,
have the
and then
money,
I'm
then
going
I'll do
to
this, and then I'll be happy.
exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
You can't do it that way. It just doesn't work.
Right. Exactly. So this is the secret to long-term change, is to start deep. Don't try to change the outside stuff. Don't just try to change your behavior, right? We talked about coaches earlier. There's a lot of coaches that will go do this. But if that person doesn't believe they can do it, or if they don't have the right internal value to stay motivated, or if they don't believe that's who they are, I see business owners all the time who are failing. When I say, you need to be better at marketing, they go, that's not who I am. And you know what I tell them?
If you start your own business, you are in sales.
You are in sales and you are in marketing. You are a marketer if you're a business owner, right?
Yes.
And this is what I tell people when they say that all the time. They go, that's just not me. I go, if that's not you, and if you're going to hold on to that limiting identity, quit and go get a job.
Exactly.
Because you're just going to continue to struggle. Or you can just choose to step into that identity, become a business owner, become a marketer, become a salesperson, right? Become all the good things about those, not the bad things. We all know that there's some people out there that are, that have no integrity in sales. I'm talking about become a person of integrity. Call yourself a salesperson, but with integrity, right? And what happens is when you go to those deeper levels and you start deep, the trickle-down effect is not one identity, one value, one belief, one potential. It's exponential.
Yes.
Right? That identity, that new identity that you adopt and you own fully becomes your values, becomes your beliefs, but it's exponential on the way down. It creates, this is how you can change an entire area of life, not just solve one problem, right?
This is powerful.
So powerful.
This is so powerful. This is good. This is, I love this. Yeah. I
love my favorite stuff too.
Yeah.
For hours.
Really. And really just by, getting all the way down to who am I? Who am I?
Who am I going to choose to be?
Who do I choose to be? And, it's going to create what I value, is going to create what I believe, it's going to create my potential, it's going to create how I behave, and it's going to create the results in my environment. And it absolutely makes 100% sense. And it's like trying to do it any other way, you're just going to keep banging your head up against. Yes. Right. Yeah,
exactly. And I always tell people, at the end, if I were to give you a soccer ball and say, kick this up to the space station, could you do it? the best soccer player in the world couldn't. Right. They might be able to kick it really high, but nowhere near the space station. Why? Because we have this thing called gravity. It only works in one direction. Right. But let's say I took that same person, put them up in the space station with a soccer ball. We took them out in a spacesuit. And if I were to say, make that ball go 250 miles, what would you have to do? Just let go.
Yeah.
If I try to tell you from the ground to go 250 miles up, you can't do it. But if I take you 250 miles up and I say, make this go 250 miles, it's effortless.
Right.
That's how it is with the layers of the mind. Trying to change your life at the bottom is like fighting gravity, but you go to the top and the beauty is that with the trickle down effect, everything else happens automatically. Right? When I work with people, for example, for writing books, when I work with them and I help them become an author first, they write because that's what authors do. They don't have to force themselves to write, which is what changing behavior feels like. Right? Same thing with health and fitness. If I can get a person, I don't care if they weigh 700 pounds. If I can get them to, I am athletic, I am active, or even I'm fit, they will work out because that's what fit people do.
So here's the $1 million question. How do you get somebody to change their identity, to really, not just say, something that's not true for them at that deepest level, but how do you get that identity to shift?
That's where NLP comes in.
I'm going to assume, that's where we're going to, need to actually do the strategies and the tools and the techniques that you teach.
To do the work. Yeah. And it's funny because we say do the work, but it's not even really work. Most people, when they experience NLP for the first time, and the change happens so fast. NLP is based on Ericksonian's idea of brief therapy. Erickson was a psychiatrist, and most psychiatrists would see their patients for 12 or 13 or 14 or 15 years, sometimes longer. Erickson didn't want to see his client more than one session. He wanted to fix whatever was going on with that client in one session and send that person off and have a happy life. Very different philosophy than psychiatrists in the day. And NLP modeled that. The techniques from NLP, people can release phobias in 5 minutes flat. People can, make these kind of lifelong changes in sometimes minutes. There's a tool from NLP called time techniques, which I think is one of the most powerful. Usually it's only done by a practitioner to a client, but we're now teaching it to everybody, to how to use it in your own life, right? You're not qualified to go use it with other people the way that we're teaching it that way, but we're giving people tools and saying, you can release anything you want in your own life. Just follow these simple steps. And that's where these people they're making lifelong changes in there. And if somebody wants to go on and become certified and help other people and become a coach, that's fantastic. We have that too.
Right.
But I think every single person in the world should have this set of tools. Once you have it, there's no excuse for not having your life be the way you want it to, because you release everything that holds you back. And that's the change that I made in my life 22 years ago, right? Tapping into the subconscious mind, starting with hypnosis, moving on to NLP. And, I live a life now that I couldn't even have dreamed of 22 years ago. I didn't even think it was possible,
That is so inspiring. And this has really been a very, very powerful, very inspiring interview, and so informative. I mean, you gave us so much quality, high level quality information that, this is the kind of thing, honestly, the interview that you just gave us here. This is the kind of thing I think, most people pay to learn. And you just gave it as valuable information here on our podcast. So I really, really do appreciate everything that you've shared with us today. It's just been, and I learned, one of my reasons for actually creating this podcast 4 years ago is I'm so interested in learning more and advancing my own skills and hearing how other people, explain things. I always learn something. So I know if I am getting this kind of value, I know my listeners are too. And so I just really, really appreciate that. So we're at that point of our podcast where it's gift time. It's gift giving time. And so, so you have a special opportunity where somebody can go and they can sign up on tdnlp.com/HT gift. That's like for hip talk, HT gift. So TD, like transform destiny, tdnlp.com/HT gift. And all you got to do is enter your name and your email address, and you are going to get
we're going to shower you with gifts.
Yes. Yeah. Tell them what to get.
Yeah, sure. I'm going to give you a 2-hour audio NLP course that we have that's called Empowering Your Life for a Change. And it's going to give you, like we talked about today with creating this long lasting change, it's going to give you some more of the foundations of NLP, how to set goals that you can achieve. And you're going to learn more about the subconscious mind, how it works and how to work with it. And that's an $87 course. We're going to give you that for free. Also going to give you a few other tools and a few other gifts, really. Just for about 3 days, I'm going to send you emails and I'm just going to shower you with gifts. So
love it.
All you got to do is put in your name and email and you'll get those. And you can unsubscribe anytime if you don't want to stay on the list. And then we have another special, which this is, to me, this is that thing I was telling you about. This is our passion, is getting this out to people who, just everyday people. Everybody should learn how to let go of the stuff that's holding you back. And by the way, that could be little stuff that holds you back and it can be big stuff. We've had people let go of massive, massive trauma. And amazingly enough, when we do this course that I'm about to talk about live, we get to see it happening in the audience where some people even let go of physical stuff.
Wow.
Right? We had a woman that came in, an older woman. She came in on 2 crutches to the live event, hunched over like the Hunchback of Notre Dame and walking like slow as a turtle. And like when she was coming through the door, everybody was like trying to get past her and everything, right? She sat through this Create Your Life course that I'm going to tell you about, released all of her negative emotions, anger, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt. She did a technique we teach called Ho'oponopono, which if you've heard it, Ho'oponopono as a chant is very powerful. We actually have a process of Ho'oponopono, which is life-changing, that you can do on yourself. And she actually stood up straight after that, got rid of her canes and started taking care of herself. And her sister had been her caretaker for 5 years. And after taking this course, like physically, she had to do. Now, obviously, we can't say that it was what we did that changed it. I think she made some internal changes though that had a physical effect on her. It was amazing. So
That
this is a
is
course we have.
amazing.
It's called Create Your Life, the NLP experience. And this is not a course where we're going to teach you how to work with clients,
Mm-hmm.
right? This is not the kind of course where you get certified as a professional and you know how to work with clients and trauma and things like that, right? That takes in-depth training. But to
Mm-hmm.
do NLP on yourself, we can teach you that in a weekend, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so this is a personal development course, not a professional certification course. It's called Create Your Life, the live NLP, or the NLP experience. Normally we sell it for $200. We're doing it right now for people on the podcast for $47. Right.
Nice.
And it's self-directed. You get lifetime access to it. You can log in anytime. You can take it over and over again if you want to. But it's that's at tdnlp.com/hip talk. And yeah, I think you'll love it.
Wow. Well, what a bunch of great gifts and great information and great story and great explanation on how, this whole thing started with talking about the subconscious mind and, talking about clearing those limiting beliefs, but going way deeper than that at the level of identity. And then now
Yeah.
providing us with a way to get a hold of these amazing NLP tools and trainings that you offer. So thank you so much for all of this, Michael. It's been my pleasure to see you and have you on the show and to share this wonderful information with our Power of Your Mind podcast listeners. Thank you, listeners, for being here and receiving this wonderful information. And any last final words that you just want to leave us with? I always just, I don't know, just a quote or a tip or, just go get it.
Yeah. I'll leave you with the last thing. This has been the biggest thing in my life is that, you are magnificent and you were put here to be magnificent. And I think mediocrity is a disease. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people have caught that disease, not out of being lazy or slacking, but it's just that they don't know what they're capable of. And, I think we only get one shot at this life. I don't know if we get other ones, but we get one shot at this life that we're at right now. You can make something amazing of it. You have the ability to do that. You just need to learn the tools to unlock that within you.
Perfect. Well, with that, I'm going to sign off and thank you so much for being a guest. And thank you so much for listening to the Power of Your Mind podcast.
Thanks.